Hi everybody, welcome to Captain Steve's How-To Boating, and I am on a 48-foot 2003 Sea Ray DB. And the reason I'm here is because the sump tank has a problem. Now the sump tank is a tank where all of the gray water goes to. That's the water coming from the sinks, from the showers, everywhere that's not from the toilet. The toilet goes into a holding tank separately. Now, on a lot of the old boats, it all went into the same spot, or they had a holding tank just for gray water, or they had the gray water just going straight overboard. Well, that's changed with modern boats. You now have to have a sump tank. And there's a lot of reasons for the sump tank I'm going to show you. But first of all, the reason I'm here is because the emergency bilge pumps were kicking in, setting off an alarm in the forward part of the boat. Didn't know why, so we came down and take a look, and what we found was that the sump tank was overflowing, and there's an overflow hose that comes out of the sump tank into the bilge in case if it does have a problem, then it goes into the bilge and the bilge pump pumps it overboard. So we took it apart and found out, in fact, that the bilge pump inside of the sump tank, the float switch is not working, and I'll show you in a second how we found that out. But let's talk about the sump tank to begin with. Here's what it looks like. You have down here, you have a tank which has all kinds of things coming into it. You've got the floor coming out of the bathroom, which it has a drain. You have the air conditioning. You have the sinks from both the master bathroom and the guest bathroom. You have the area coming from the galley, the sink from the galley coming down into here. You have the showers coming into here. So everything that's not black water or sewage comes into this tank. And as it starts to fill up, it throws it overboard. Now the tank has different levels to it. I'm going to take the top off right now. Now these tanks can be pretty gross because everything that comes from the sinks in the shower comes into this. So the next time that somebody pours coffee down your sink, or any kind of grounds or anything like that, remember, the only thing this can handle is liquid, water, and yeah, it can handle Cokes, and it can handle all the soft drinks and the coffee and juices and stuff like that. But if you can avoid it, keep those things out of here, because all that's happening is it comes down into here and it sits, then it gets pumped overboard. Now this tank and all these tanks have two different levels. They have a level where the pump is, and then it has a level where the float switch is. Now there's a real good reason for that. Most stuff that comes into here has soap suds attached to them. Somebody's taking a shower, somebody's washing their hands. And one thing we don't like on the outside world is to see soap suds floating along our water. Soapy water is okay. We don't mind that because it just kind of mixes in and stuff, and hopefully you're all green-minded so you don't put in real bad type things, real strong soaps and things like that. You're using some kind of an eco-friendly soap, shampoo and stuff like that. But what happens is those soap suds float, and this pump will only pick up the water underneath the soap suds, and the float switch keeps it from going too far down to where the pump picks up the soap suds. So the soap suds then dissipate on top, they turn into water, and eventually it gets pumped overboard. And that makes everybody happy because, again, we just don't like to see soap suds floating across our waterways. It just doesn't give the right feeling. But these things really do get dirty. And you can see I've got blue nylon gloves on. And I'm going to recommend this to you anytime you work around sludge, soap, sewage, any kind of things that can carry bacteria. Even doing an oil change and working down in the bilges in any way, shape, or form, you should always have some kind of protective gloves on. I prefer the nylon gloves because they're stronger than latex. They don't make my hands, I have a reaction to latex anyway, so that doesn't work really well. But they're still thin enough that I can feel things through them, unlike big rubber gloves you might want to put on. So nylons are my favorite to use. But if you can see in here how dirty this is, and believe me, this is actually very clean compared to what others that I've seen. It has a plastic cover that goes over the top of it, where all these things come into. The shower, the sink, the air conditioning, all this gray water comes into this tank, and it sits for long periods of time, so it gets pretty nasty down in here. So when you think about people pouring Coke and coffee, and keep those coffee grounds out of here. They don't work like they do at your home sink. This stuff is not going into a sewer system. It's going into our waters, and and those coffee grounds are going to sit in this tank and never go anywhere. But occasionally, maybe once a year, I would recommend coming down, taking the plastic top of it that seals it, makes it watertight so it doesn't come off directly into the bilge. Take that off and clean this out. Run fresh water into it, get some soap in here and scrub it out and really clean it out so it doesn't get too bad, because after 3 or 4 years it really starts to get nasty, nasty, nasty. So what we found was the float switch was bad. And how did we find that out? Well, actually, it's pretty simple. We took the wires from the float switch and we cut them. And then we took those wires and we touched them, because all the float switch is a contact. When the float goes up, it contacts the electricity. So we went ahead and touched them, and boom, the pump kicked in. So we knew the pump was fine. Had I done this and the pump didn't kick in, then we'd know the float switch is probably okay, but I'd replace it anyway, and we need to replace the pump. In this case, we do not need to replace the pump, which is a great dollar savings. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and swap this bilge switch out, remembering that the wires go out through a hole, and that hole has to have caulking put into it so the water can't seep out of there. We'll reconnect the wires on the outside, and this sump pump will be back in action. So remember, keep your sump pumps clean. It's a sanitary thing to do, it's a healthy thing to do, and you really don't want it to get nasty, because it is just, you just can't stand it. So I'll tell you what, thanks for being with me, and I will see you at the helm. This isn't going to be perfectly clean, but it's going to be cleaner than it is, and the cleaner the better.